Claire Burns lives in Denver, Colorado, where she writes, studies Sanskrit, and reflects on intersections of human, natural, constructed existence. A graduate of the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics MFA program at Naropa University, her work has appeared in Poetry New York, Bombay Gin, and online in Lynx, Autoliths, and Blue and Yellow Dog. Forthcoming work to appear in Robot Melon. Other published works include Fantastic Voyage and Photo Insensitive. Translations from the German include Peck Me Up, My Wing, selections from the work of Friedrich Mayrocker, The Two Hands of the Sparrowhawk by Helmut Salzinger, and forthcoming The Bird Exposition, also by Salzinger. Burns is a linguophile, artist, and gardener.
Hi everyone, thanks for being here tonight. This is, in case you don't know what's happening, because you just are here, I'm offering an informal retrospective on a German critic, philanthropist, writer, poet, and heavy-duty intellectual scholar turned hippie in the 60s. I first ran across Helmut Salzinger because when I was in the MFA program, I was very involved in translation, and I was approached and asked to translate a little chapbook of his called The Two Hands of the Sparrowhawk. And subsequently, I completed that. Subsequently, the same publisher asked me to do another one, and a few years passed before I got to that. But it was a lot of work, and in the process, I got very interested in figuring out who he was as a person, and conceived the project of bringing him more to the English-speaking audience. He was a pretty prominent figure in Germany in the 60s and 70s, and started off his career. He was born in 1935. He ended up getting a PhD in German studies and literature, and then became a journalist and critic working for the German Time, Die Zeit, and the South German newspaper, and got quite a reputation for himself. Had was considered a distinguished authority on culture. And as the 60s came along, it really saw him transform from someone who was very, very rooted in the intellectual tradition of German, you might say, exactness. And through the culture of postmodern and beat poetry in America, and rock music, Jimi Hendrix and Carlos Castaneda was very influenced by him. He became a kind of he turned himself inside out. He began writing such radical articles that he finally lost his job with the newspaper. And he also wrote musical criticism for the German magazine called Sounds, which is still around online, and wrote voluminously. He has a bibliography as long as my arm, and for instance, his writing about music and pop criticism was brought together, the best of those articles in this volume, and it's really tiny print. There's a lot of stuff in here. Practically, as far as I know, the only thing that's been translated into English is something I translated. And I'd really like to see more people find out about him. The more I found out about him myself, the more I realized what a kind of an interesting, quirky, and controversial figure he was when he was alive.
Sorry, what is his name that you should get?
Helmut Salzinger.
Can you spell that?
Sure. Helmut. Salzinger. And stop me with that.
Yeah.
So let's see. Right. So as he became more involved, first in the concepts of revolution that were prevalent in the 60s, and later in rock music and experimenting with drugs and consciousness, he, as I said, he lost his position with the major magazines and decided to moved to the country. He was the son of a very, very wealthy German industrialist, the only son, and he inherited a huge estate. He was very wealthy. So he moved to a very little village in the northern lowlands, which is very much like Holland. It's all below sea level and flat, very, very flat. These pictures up there are all taken around where he lived. And his first idea was to start a commune. And he wanted everybody to come and live for free, and everybody came and lived for free, and then he discovered, like so many people who were excited about communes, that not everybody behaves according to the standards that you have, and he kicked everybody out and became kind of grumpy about it. But he did a tremendous amount of philanthropic work. He sponsored a lot of people who published poetry, who wrote poetry, artists, students, sent students to school, and so on during his lifetime. And one of the major tangible, obvious things that he did is he published a really fine literary magazine for 3 years every month. And I have a couple of examples of the magazine, not translated, of course, but it was called Fall. And they designed the covers. And what he did was he brought together a community of poets that he knew and that he didn't know. And the idea, he bought a printing press, it wasn't a printing press, it was a mimeograph machine. He bought a mimeograph machine, and they had the covers printed. And each issue was supposed to be taken in hand by one particular poet or writer, and they would organize and decide, gather the content and the theme and so on. So it's really got some great stuff in it by a lot of great people. The interesting thing that I found, I decided that I was going to make a trip to Germany to talk to the people who were still alive who knew him. And it was such a revelation. I encountered this world of conflict and intrigue and jealousy, and well, you can kind of see where money goes, that follows. But Salzinger had collected people around him to work on this magazine, and they came and went, and his wife was very much involved in it, Mo Salzinger. There isn't very much information about her, but all the people who knew her said she was really kind of the heart of the place. And Salzinger kept a garden in the backyard, grew the vegetables, and she was apparently this outstanding, amazing cook. Everyone said, no matter what they said about her, they said she was the best cook in the world. She cooked for everybody who came. And as Salzinger grew more ill with diabetes, which he'd suffered from his whole life, he had a dialysis machine